I heard everything, every single word. They thought I was unconscious, but I was there, listening, as they carved up my life like I was already gone. The monitors beeped in slow rhythm, each tone as dull as the voices around me. I couldn't move, couldn't open my eyes, but I was still there, inside this tired, quiet body, watching the shadows shift behind my eyelids, feeling every shift of the sheets, and hearing every conversation. I don't know how long I'd been like that. Days blurred into each other. Sometimes the nurses whispered. Sometimes it was just the humming of the fluorescent lights. But today, the room was full. My daughter Emily's voice cut through everything. Brisk, clipped, too loud. "She never updated her will," Emily said. "That's what worries me. If something happens, we're stuck with probate, and that house will sit empty for months." Rick, my son, grunted. "We'll have to talk to her lawyer. There's bound to be something. She was always organized." She was, yes. But look at her. Emily's voice dropped, and I could feel her eyes on me. "Mom wouldn't want to live like this." Like what, Emily? Trapped between life and death, waiting for my children to pick the bones clean? "I'm not saying we do anything drastic," she added quickly. "But we need to be realistic. She's 76, Rick. And that stroke was bad. So that's what it was. A stroke. I remember the tingling first, then the fall. The floor was cold. The tile hit my cheekbone. I tried to reach the phone, but my hand didn't respond. After that, nothing. Just blackness. And now, this. Look, Rick said. She has money. The house alone is worth $500,000, and there's her investments. She told me once there's over 600 grand in stocks. But who knows what's still there, Emily said. I swear, if she left it all to that granddaughter of yours. Haley? Rick scoffed. Mom wouldn't do that. She wouldn't? You sure? Emily's voice grew sharper. Because Haley's the only one she still liked lately. I can't even remember the last time Mom invited me for dinner. Maybe because the last time you came, Emily, you spent the entire evening critiquing my kitchen and suggesting I move into a retirement complex. I think we need to look into power of attorney, Rick said carefully. If she stays like this for much longer. No, Emily snapped. I want this handled properly. I don't trust you not to screw it up like the Tahoe house. Tahoe. That damn cabin. They fought over that, too, after their father died. As if grief came with a property appraisal and a deadline. I tried to scream, to move, to reach for them. But nothing came. Just breath, slow and shallow, and the sense of my chest rising and falling like a tired wave. Rick stood closer now. I knew that smell, his cologne, heavy and synthetic. He'd always tried too hard to impress people. We need to find her files, he muttered. Passwords, banking info, everything, before Haley starts sniffing around. She's not even here, Emily said. Probably busy posting some sympathy post on social media. That was a low blow. Haley was the only one who came by without asking for anything. Just last month, she helped me fix the old fence without me even asking. She brought coffee and wore that oversized green hoodie, her hair in a bun. We laughed while the boards creaked under our hands. She even scraped her elbow and said it was the best afternoon she'd had in weeks. She came because she loved me, not because of my house, not because of my will. She always liked Grandma more than us, Emily muttered. That wasn't true. I tried with both of them. I paid for their college, for their weddings, helped with the down payments on their homes. I held their children, fed their pets, sat by their sides when their lives fell apart. I was always there. But now, they stood there like vultures in pearls and pressed shirts, measuring my life like it was a box of china to be split. "We need to talk to the lawyer," Rick said again. "Tomorrow. You'll come with me?" Emily sighed. "Fine. But if she wakes up and finds out?" "She won't." They left after that. Footsteps. Silence. Then the familiar squeak of the nurse's shoes on linoleum. Someone checked my IV. A gentle hand squeezed mine. "Still hanging in there, huh, Mrs. Romero?" The voice was soft. Warm. "Don't let them count you out just yet." Lynn. That was her name. The only nurse who called me anything other than patient in 409. Her fingers lingered on mine. "I told Haley you had a good day yesterday," she said. "She said she might come by soon." She sighed. "Your kids, well, families are messy, huh?" "Yes, Lynn, they are. I was still here, still breathing, still mine. And they didn't know what I remembered. Not yet." The next time they came, I recognized Emily's perfume before I heard her heels on the tile. Always something sharp and citrusy, like she wanted to cut the air around her. "She looks the same," she said, stepping closer to my bed. "Not better, not worse." "Stable," Rick added, dropping into the vinyl chair with a grunt. "Which is the worst possible scenario." "God, Rick, could you be less subtle?" He didn't answer. I felt his fingers brushing through the papers on the tray next to my bed, probably scanning the medical chart. He never did trust professionals. Always thought he could out-Google a neurologist. "I asked my lawyer friend about medical power of attorney," he said. "If we file early, while she's incapacitated, it might get expedited." Emily sighed loudly. "We're not rushing anything. That's a legal minefield. One wrong move and Haley could contest everything. I'm just saying we should prepare." "Fine. You prepare. I'll find the paperwork." So that's what this was now. Not grief, not fear, but a strategy meeting with checklists. Rick leaned closer. "You remember how long Dad hung on? 6 weeks. Just bones and wires." I remembered. I was the one changing his bedsheets, feeding him with a spoon when he couldn't hold the cup anymore. "Not you, Rick. You flew in for a weekend and called it support." "Let's be honest," he continued. "Mom hasn't been the same in years." "Yeah, she used to have opinions." Emily chuckled bitterly. "Now she just listens and nods. Because when I did speak up, you both rolled your eyes like I was senile." "You know what she told me once?" Emily said. "She wanted to donate half of her savings to some shelter for women. Half, Rick." I would have. "Still might." Rick groaned. "Jesus. She gets one thank you letter and suddenly she's Mother Teresa." I felt a strange sensation in my chest. Not pain, not yet, but something close. A throb, quiet but steady. I imagined myself standing up, shouting at them, dragging my own IV pole if I had to. But I couldn't. Not yet. Emily sat on the edge of the bed. "Haley's coming by today." Rick snorted. "Perfect timing. Let her see what a coma really looks like. Maybe it'll scare her off." "She's not like us," Emily said after a pause. "She still thinks this is about feelings." Rick laughed dryly. "It is. Ours." The nurse came in then. Lynn. She offered a polite smile, but her eyes flicked toward my face as she adjusted the monitor. I don't know what she saw there, but she paused longer than usual, her touch gentler than necessary. "We're going to give your mom a new round of medication in a few hours," she told them. "It might make her drowsier." "She's already unconscious," Rick muttered. She's not brain dead, Lynn replied sharply. Just because someone can't talk doesn't mean they can't hear. Emily shifted. Are you saying she's listening? Lynn didn't blink. I'm saying I wouldn't say anything in here you wouldn't want her to know. For a split second, I felt something shift in the room, like a ripple across water. Rick scoffed. If she's listening, maybe she'll finally tell us where she hid the deed to the house? Emily laughed, but not quite as freely. They stayed a little longer, talked about market values and insurance, about estate taxes, about how difficult I always was when it came to letting go. I was still there, still breathing, still listening. They left before Haley arrived. I could hear her from the hallway, her voice softer, brighter. Hi, she said to Lynn. How is she today? Still stable, Lynn replied. But I swear she had more eye movement earlier, like she was reacting. I knew it, Haley whispered. She came in and sat by me. No perfume, no rustling of designer bags, just the quiet sound of her boots tapping the floor and the familiar scent of vanilla shampoo. Hey, Grandma, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I brought your favorite tea. I know they can't give it to you now, but I thought maybe the smell would help. She opened the lid of the thermos. The aroma drifted through the air, chamomile and mint. 1,000 mornings together in that scent. Her hand took mine. I'm not ready to lose you, she whispered. So don't go, okay? I wanted to squeeze her hand, to open my eyes, to move, but my body still refused. Haley sniffed. They're already talking about your will. It's disgusting. Uncle Rick asked if I knew the pin to your safe. Of course he did. I told him no. Even if I did, I wouldn't tell him. That's my girl. She stayed for an hour, read aloud from the book we were going through together. Her voice quivered at times, but she didn't stop. When she left, she kissed my forehead. I'll come again tomorrow, she promised, and I believed her. I used to think silence was peace. Now I know better. Silence can be a weapon, a cage, a sentence passed in whispers and estate paperwork, and I was trapped in it, forced to listen as the people I gave my life to divided it without asking. That night, after Haley left, the room darkened. A soft beeping filled the space, steady and unhurried, like a metronome for the unconscious. But I wasn't unconscious. I was contained. And inside that containment, memories stirred. Not the dramatic ones, just ordinary things. I remembered the day I bought the house. It was raining. Rick was 3. Emily was a baby on my hip. We stood on the porch while the realtor handed me the keys. My husband had just left. No warning, just a note on the kitchen counter and a drained savings account. I never saw him again. Back then, I had nothing but a part-time nursing job and a stubborn streak. But I made it work. I painted the kitchen myself, repaired leaky pipes with instructions from library books, took double shifts so the kids could stay in their schools. Everything I had came from that grit. And now they spoke of me like a fading liability. It wasn't just the house. I remembered how I helped Emily when her first husband left her with credit card debt and 2 toddlers. I lent her money. I co-signed a car loan. I watched the boys so she could go to night classes. And Rick? He called me the night he got fired from the auto shop. Said he didn't want his kids to know. I gave him $3,000. No questions. I told him pride was a luxury and survival was the job. They both took. Again and again, and I gave. Because that's what mothers do, right? But now, lying there, I realized something sharp and cold. It had never been enough. not to buy their decency, not to buy their patience, and certainly not to buy their presence now, when it really mattered. The next morning, I heard Emily arrive alone. She sighed as she entered the room, the way someone does when they're carrying both a purse and resentment. "Hey, Mom," she said, walking closer. Her voice had that rehearsed softness, the kind used with infants and dying relatives. I stopped by the house, just to check on things. My house. You really let the place get cluttered, she muttered. I mean, God, the garage is a mess. That garage held 30 years of living. Boxes labeled in my handwriting, Xmas lights, baby clothes, Rick's army stuff, Emily's school drawings. But to her, it was just clutter. She rustled through her bag. I brought a copy of the will, the old one. I think we should go over it with the lawyer. Make sure nothing surprises us. Nothing surprises her. She paused. You didn't really mean to leave half to charity, did you? I mean, it says so here. Women's Housing Initiative. I get it. You were always about that give back stuff. But come on, Mom. That's a lot. Yes, Emily, I meant it. Every cent. Rick's talking about selling the house and splitting the money. He wants to move to Arizona, of all places. Says it's cheaper. Honestly, I just want enough to pay off the boys' college loans and maybe put something aside for a vacation. I haven't had one in years. Neither have I. She got up to leave. Anyway, I'll be back Monday, unless something changes. Something would change, but not the way she expected. The next day, Rick came with a woman I didn't know, younger, nervous, holding a leather folder. I didn't need to open my eyes to know she was some kind of legal aid. Rick whispered, Mom, this is Justine. She's helping us navigate the next steps, in case things don't improve. They spoke like I was already gone. Justine muttered legal terms. Incapacitation, durable power of attorney, asset distribution, trusts, probate. Rick asked if Haley could contest anything. Justine said yes, especially if I had a newer will or if anyone suspected coercion. Rick cursed under his breath. She's too soft for this. I swear if she had her way, we'd turn this into a damn memorial garden and give away the land. After they left, Lynn came in. She hummed as she adjusted my blankets. Her presence was like light through fog. I saw your son today, she said quietly. Lawyers and papers. All business. She looked me straight in the face. But you're still here, Agnes, and you still have rights. That was the first time someone said my name in days. Agnes. Me. Not the patient. Not the coma case. Agnes Romero. My body was still slow, but my mind? Sharp as ever. And I was done listening. I was going to come back. On my terms. I didn't wake up all at once. It happened in inches. Like ice melting. Like breath returning to lungs that forgot how to take it. The first thing I could move was my tongue. Barely. The taste of plastic. From the tube. From the dryness. Coated my mouth like dust. Then came the fingers. A twitch. Enough to make the heart monitor skip. Lynn noticed it first. Agnes? She whispered, brushing her hand over mine. That was you, wasn't it? I tried again. A shift in the fingertips. She leaned in, watching like a hawk. You're in there. I knew it. By the time the neurologist came, I could squeeze her hand, weak like a whisper, but clear. The nurse smiled like someone watching the sunrise after too many cold nights. When Emily came later that afternoon, her reaction was different. Oh, she said, blinking too fast. You're awake. I couldn't speak yet. The tube was still there. My voice would take time. My strength would take longer. Emily stood by the foot of the bed, fiddling with the strap of her bag. You gave us quite a scare." I looked at her. That's all I could do. Just look. But I made it count. "You probably don't remember anything, right?" she asked too quickly. I didn't blink. She stepped closer. "It's okay if you don't. You were out for a long time." I didn't move, just stared. Let her stew in that silence. When Rick came in the next morning, he was loud. Too loud. "Hey, Mom, look at you, awake!" He leaned down, kissed my forehead like it was a press event. He glanced at the machines, at Lynn, then at me. "Bet you don't even know what day it is." I blinked once. Rick laughed nervously. "Well, no matter. What's important is you're back. We're so happy." "Sure you are." They took turns visiting me. Now always cheerful, always full of fake warmth. No more whispering over my head. No more talks about deeds or divisions. They thought they had time to rewrite their behavior. But I remembered everything, and I would use it. 3 days later, I could speak. A dry rasp, but enough. I asked for water, then for Lynn, then for a notepad. "You want to write something down?" Lynn asked. I nodded. She placed the notepad on my lap. I took the pen, my fingers shaking, and wrote 2 words. "Call Franklin, my lawyer. Franklin Kemp, a friend of my late brother. Sharp, discreet, and loyal to me alone." "Of course," Lynn said softly. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. When Franklin came the next morning, he was dressed in his usual tweed, the same brown leather briefcase he'd carried since the 90s. "My God," he said, gently taking my hand. "It's good to see you, Agnes." "I need to update my will," I said, voice barely above air. He nodded. I assumed as much. "I've got everything with me." I told him everything. What I heard, what I remembered. I watched his face grow stiller with each word. When I was done, he nodded slowly. "We'll make it ironclad. You have every right." We worked in silence for a while. Franklin drafted the new documents right there at my bedside. We wrote out new beneficiaries, created a trust, assigned Haley as medical power of attorney. When it came time to assign guardianship over my assets, in case of future incapacity, I named Lynn, the nurse who spoke to me like a person. Franklin raised an eyebrow but didn't question me. He knew better. As he packed up, he looked at me and said, "Do you want them to know yet?" "No. Let them think I'm still frail, still fragile. Let them get comfortable." Because I wasn't finished, not even close. The first time I stood up, it felt like betrayal. My legs trembled under me like wet branches, thin and uncertain. Lynn hovered beside me, her hands outstretched, not touching unless I faltered. "You're doing fine," she whispered. "You've done harder things." She was right. I'd given birth twice without anesthesia. Worked night shifts in the ER until my back felt like gravel. Buried my sister alone. I could stand, and I would walk. Because I had things to do. My recovery was faster than anyone expected. A week after the feeding tube was removed, I was eating on my own. 2 weeks later, I could cross the room with a walker. The doctors called it unexpected resilience. Lynn called it something better. "Willpower," she said. "Your kids should know who they're dealing with." They didn't. Not really. They'd spent so long seeing me as a silent backdrop. The casserole at Thanksgiving, the birthday check in the mail. They forgot I had teeth. Emily came with flowers. Not the cheap grocery store kind, the kind that scream professional guilt. She sat on the edge of the visitor's chair, legs crossed too tightly. "You look so much better," she said, her smile held together with pins. "You really scared us, Mom." I nodded. Didn't offer more. She glanced at the machines, at the clipboard. "I've been thinking, when you're discharged, you shouldn't be alone. Maybe a senior community with care staff? Or you could stay with us for a while. We could convert the den and control everything." "No," I said simply. She blinked. "What?" "I'm going home." Emily opened her mouth, then shut it, then tried again. "You're still recovering. Don't you think you need supervision?" "I've lived alone for 35 years, I said. "I can manage toast and socks." She laughed, too loudly. "Of course. I didn't mean to imply. We just want what's best. You want convenience, control, and access." Rick showed up the next day, this time with lunch. Fast food in a paper bag, as if a burger and fries could undo what I'd heard. "Brought your favorite," he said, "unless your tastes changed while you were sleeping." I looked at the greasy package and said nothing. He dropped into the chair. "So, Franklin stopped by, huh?" My heart didn't move. My face didn't flicker. "He did." Rick tried to smile, but it bent the wrong way. "Updating the will already?" That was fast. "Not really," I said. "I've had time to think." His knee bounced. "I just hope we're still part of the plan. You know, family and all." Family. That word again. Like it meant something. Like it erased everything. "You'll find out soon enough." That made him nervous. I watched him fidget, the way he used to when he got caught smoking behind the high school gym. "Just don't let Haley fill your head with ideas," he muttered. "She's young, idealistic, doesn't get how things work. She gets more than you think." He didn't visit for 4 days after that. Haley came in the meantime. With soup she made herself. With books. With silence when I needed it. "They're nervous," she said once, brushing my hair back. "They don't know what you remember." I looked at her, and for the first time since the stroke, I let the edge into my voice. "I remember everything." She didn't smile, just nodded. That weekend, I was cleared to go home. Lynn packed my things while I signed the discharge papers. She folded my old sweater like it was silk. "You've got this," she said. "Don't let them talk you down." "I won't." She hugged me, tightly, fiercely, like she knew she wouldn't see me again, but trusted I'd make it count. The hospital lobby smelled like antiseptic and overwashed rugs. Franklin met me by the door, Haley behind him, holding my coat. "You sure you're ready?" he asked. "More than." I got into the car without help. When we pulled into my driveway, my house still standing, still mine, I felt something stir in me. Not just relief. Power. Haley unlocked the door. Sunlight fell across the floor like welcome. Dust floated through it like dancers. "Home," I said. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Because the real work was about to begin. Coming home should have felt like comfort. Instead, it felt like standing in a crime scene where the body was still warm. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon polish. Too faint. Someone had been here, but not to clean. The papers on my desk were shuffled. The mail had been opened. And the safe in the hallway closet, the one I kept old documents in, its combination lock was smeared with prints. Haley stood behind me, quiet. They were looking for something, I said. I know, she replied. I caught Uncle Rick here the day after your stroke. Said he was just picking up a sweater for you. But I saw him in your office. The desk was open. So they hadn't even waited a full day. I sat down slowly, letting my cane rest against the table. Do you know what he was looking for? Haley asked. Yes, I said. My last will and the land deed. Both were in the safe. Were? Not anymore. I reached into the side drawer and pulled out a small envelope. Inside, copies. Originals were already with Franklin. The new documents, the updated will, the trust account, everything airtight. Haley looked at me for a long moment, then asked, Do you want them to know? Not yet. Let them twist. That night, the silence in the house was different. Not hollow, alert. Every tick of the clock sounded like a countdown. I made tea, sat in my old armchair, watched the dark settle outside my window. Then I pulled the notebook I'd kept since Franklin's first visit. A simple spiral-bound pad, nothing fancy. Inside, a list. Not of grievances. I wasn't that petty. No, this was a record. Names, dates, sums, every loan, every time I bailed someone out, helped with tuition, paid for car repairs, even small things. I wrote it all down now, not for revenge, but because for the first time, I wanted to see it clearly. It added up fast. More than $240,000 across 25 years. Some of it I'd forgotten. Some of it I'd tried to. The next morning, Emily showed up. No call, no warning, just her Lexus pulling up like she still had a key. I met her at the door. Oh, good, you're awake, she said. I brought muffins. Figured you wouldn't be up to cooking yet. She breezed past me into the kitchen, opening drawers, looking for plates like it was still her house. Everything okay? I asked, watching her closely. What? Yes, of course. Her smile twitched. Just checking in, making sure you're adjusting. I am. She poured coffee for herself. Didn't ask if I wanted any. Sat at the table. You should really think about getting a cleaner, she said. This place is too big for you. I like the space. Well, it's just, if something happened again, no one would know. Is that what you're worried about? I asked quietly. She looked up. Blinked. I leaned forward. Or are you worried I'll rewrite the paperwork while I'm still able to? That shook her. I saw it in the tight grip on the mug handle. I just want what's best, she said again. No, I said. You want what's yours, or what you think is. Her face tightened. You don't know what it's been like dealing with all this. The stress, the uncertainty. You weren't supposed to make it, Mom. We had to think ahead. I stood up, cane in hand. Steady. Next time, knock. Emily stared. The mask slipped for a second. Just long enough. She left without finishing her coffee. Haley came later with groceries. She came? She asked, unpacking the bags. She did. Did you tell her? I shook my head. Not yet. Haley was quiet for a moment, then said, When you do, I want to be there. You will. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. Not because the house was safe, but because the truth was finally mine again, and they couldn't touch it. The day Rick came back, he didn't come alone. His wife, Dana, was with him. She never visited before. Not when I was in the hospital, not when I was brought home. But now she wore pearls and a tense smile and carried a store-bought pie like it was a peace treaty. I opened the door slowly. Mom? Rick said brightly. Too brightly. We thought we'd stop by. Dana made dessert. No, I didn't, she said, then caught herself. I mean, we brought dessert. I stepped aside without a word. They settled into the living room like they were rehearsing a play. Dana placed the pie on the coffee table. Rick glanced at the photos on the mantel. Then, after too many seconds of fake casualness, he spoke. "We've been talking," he said, "and we just wanted to say, we're really glad you're better." "Health is everything," Dana added, as if she were reading it off a teabag. I said nothing. Rick cleared his throat. "We also wanted to make sure, going forward, that you feel supported." "How kind," I said. Rick's smile stiffened. "I mean, it's important that we all feel aligned." "Aligned," I echoed. "Yes. With what's next." There it was. The reason for their visit. Dana leaned in. "Rick mentioned you updated your will." My fingers curled around the handle of my cane. "Did he?" I said. "He just thought," she continued quickly, "that, given everything, your health scare, the emotional strain, it might have been too hasty. Maybe something you should revisit." Rick jumped in. "And look, we're not here to pressure you. God, no. But the house, the accounts, they're all pretty complex. We just think it would be easier if things were clarified. For everyone's sake." I looked at them both. My son, whose mortgage I paid when his business failed. His wife, who once cried at my kitchen table because she couldn't afford her mother's medication. I helped. Every time. And now they were here, couching their greed in fake concern. "I see," I said softly. "You're worried about what's easier." Dana smiled too fast. "Exactly." I stood, slowly, but on my own. "You want clarification? Here it is. I rewrote my will because I wanted to. Because I was alive and aware when my children discussed my death like a weather forecast. Because I listened to you, Rick, ask about property value while I was lying there, unable to blink." He froze. I remember everything, every single word. Dana's face went pale. Rick looked like someone had slapped him. You were conscious?" "Yes." Rick opened his mouth, but I didn't give him time. "The deed is no longer in this house. The accounts have been moved, and Haley, not you, has power of attorney." Dana gasped. "You're giving everything to her?" "No," I said. "I'm giving myself peace. The rest is a consequence." Rick's voice rose. "This is insane. She's a child. She's more adult than either of you have been in years." Dana stood. "This isn't fair. We're your family." "No," I said, my voice steel. "You were. But family isn't blood. It's what you do when no one's watching." And I watched. I pointed to the door. They left in silence. That night, Haley came over with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "You did it," she whispered, eyes wide. "I did," I said. She raised her glass. "To clarity." I raised mine. "To freedom." And we drank, slowly, in silence. As the evening wrapped around us like a shawl, I stitched myself. I didn't cry after they left. Not because I wasn't hurt. I was. More than I'd let myself admit. But because crying felt like something I used to do, back when I still hoped for softness from people who only showed up with open palms. The house was quiet again. Not peaceful, but honest. The next morning, I woke early, made tea, sat in the kitchen with the window cracked open, the breeze lifting the curtain like a breath. I looked out at the yard, the garden I'd built from nothing, the worn path where Rick used to run barefoot, where Emily once buried a time capsule in a coffee can and forgot where she'd put it. They'd forgotten a lot over the years. Around 10, the doorbell rang. I braced myself. But it wasn't either of them. It was Judith Green. We hadn't spoken in months, maybe more. She lived 2 blocks down. We used to take walks together. Then her arthritis worsened. My stroke happened. Life drifted. But now she stood on my porch, leaning on a cane that looked even older than mine. "Well," she said, "you look like hell." I laughed. For the first time in weeks, a real one. "And you always did have impeccable timing," I said, stepping aside. She walked in with the same stiff dignity I remembered, dropped her purse on a chair, and sat like she owned the place. "I heard," she said simply. "Heard what?" She gave me a look. "You know what. Your daughter, your son, the whole performance. People talk." "Let them," I said. "I'm done playing nice." "Good," she said. "About damn time." She sipped the tea I handed her. "You know, my niece tried to get me to sign over my condo last year, said it was for tax reasons. Turns out she wanted to flip it and pay off her boyfriend's gambling debt." I raised an eyebrow. "She's 28 and thinks I'm too old to Google." We both laughed, but under it, I felt the quiet bond that only women our age understand. The shift from being needed to being used, from mother to asset, from person to obstacle. Judith leaned forward. "What are you going to do now?" "I already did it." She smiled. "You always were the quiet kind of dangerous." "No," I said. "I just stopped apologizing." We sat in silence after that. The kind that doesn't itch. When she left, she hugged me tighter than usual. "Don't let them slink back," she whispered. "Shame fades faster than greed." I watched her walk away slowly, the cane thumping against the steps. Then I went to my desk and opened the notebook again. There was one thing left undone. A letter. I started with Rick. "Rick, you asked for clarity. This is it. I listened as you weighed my house like a listing, my life like a liability. I heard you call Haley too soft. The same girl who sat with me every day while you planned how to bury me with paperwork. You'll receive no inheritance from me. Not because I want revenge, but because I finally respect myself too much to reward betrayal. Consider this a boundary, the kind you never had the courage to set." Then Emily. "Emily, you always said I was dramatic, that I held on to things. You're right. I held on to birthdays you forgot, holidays you skipped, favors you turned into expectations. But I'm done holding. I wish you a life of ease, but not at my expense." I didn't write one to Dana or the boys. I had nothing left to say. I placed the letters in envelopes and set them aside for Franklin. He would deliver them after the formal reading. And then I stood. Slowly. Went to the mirror in the hallway. The woman looking back at me was thinner, older, but her eyes were clear. I didn't look like someone who'd been defeated. I looked like someone who had finally come home to herself. The mistake they all made was thinking I was lonely, but I was never afraid of being alone. I was afraid of being used, of giving everything and still ending up empty. Now that fear was gone. I started walking each morning, just to the corner and back at first, then down the block. The air was sharp, fall rolling in with a chill that made my knees ache. But I walked anyway. One hand on the cane, the other in my coat pocket, feeling the steady beat of my pulse. Alive. Clear. People began to notice. Mrs. Coleman across the street waved every morning now. Her husband nodded like he finally saw me. Not the woman they'd whispered about, not the ghost behind the curtains, but someone real. Present. On Thursday, Haley arrived just before lunch with 2 boxes and an old laptop under her arm. "Tell me where to set up," she said. "Set up what?" "You'll see." She took over the dining table like a general. The boxes were filled with photographs, old letters, and documents I hadn't touched in years. Birth certificates, tax returns, pictures of my children when they still ran to me for comfort, not calculations. "What are we doing?" I asked, though I already had an idea. "We're digitizing everything," she said, powering up the laptop. "All of it. No more drawers full of paper they can dig through." I watched her work for a moment, sleeves pushed up, hair falling into her eyes, and something in my chest lifted. "You don't have to do this," I said quietly. She didn't look up. "I know. That's why I'm here." Later, over soup, she asked the question gently. "Do you want to talk to them? Before the will's read?" I shook my head. "They had their chance," I said. "What I'd say now wouldn't be for them. It'd be for me. And I've said it already. In silence. In actions." She nodded. "They won't take it well. I don't need them to." Franklin called the next morning. The paperwork was done. The trust was active. The property fully protected. The only thing left was the formal reading. "They'll fight it," he warned. "They'll try," I said. "But they'll lose." He chuckled. "You've changed." "No. I've just remembered who I was before I started handing pieces of myself to people who never deserved them." That afternoon, I sat in the garden. The sun hit the trees at an angle that turned everything gold. My roses had begun to fade, but the marigolds were still bright, defiant. I ran my fingers along the stems. Everything ends, I thought. But some things begin again, too. Judith stopped by. She brought a jar of jam and half a scandal. "Your son," she said, lowering her voice like we were in church, "was overheard at the pharmacy yelling about lawyers and ungrateful old women." I laughed, loud and long. "You're famous now," she added, grinning. "Let them talk." "They do," she said, "but they also watch. Let them do that too." She poured us both tea from the pot I'd made earlier. We sat on the porch like we were 30 years younger, two women with history and nothing to lose. "You know what I regret?" Judith said suddenly. "All those years I thought keeping the peace meant being quiet." "Me too," I said, "but I'm not quiet anymore." We clinked our cups like a toast, and for the first time in a long time, I felt full. Not with things, not with noise, but with myself. And that was more than enough. The day of the will reading was gray, not rainy, just heavy, as if the clouds had settled low on purpose, waiting to see what I'd do next. Franklin arrived first, early, as always. He brought a folder under his arm and a calmness I'd come to appreciate. Haley was already in the kitchen making coffee. "I sent the final copies to both of them yesterday," he said. "No legal surprises, but expect emotional ones." "I've seen enough of their emotions," I said. "This one's mine." He nodded. "You sure you want to do this here?" "Yes," I said. Let them walk into the home they thought they'd already claimed. Emily arrived next, followed by Rick 10 minutes later. Both of them dressed like they were attending a funeral, which, in a way, they were. Neither greeted me with more than a nod. Emily looked around the living room like she was inspecting a rental. Rick avoided my eyes entirely. They sat. Franklin took his place at the dining table and opened the folder. "This will reading is formal but not judicial," he began. "You've both received electronic copies. Today's session is for clarity." Silence. He continued. "Agnes Romero, being of sound mind and body, has revised her last will and testament. This document revokes all previous versions." Emily crossed her arms. Rick shifted in his seat. To my son, Richard Romero, and to my daughter, Emily Owens, Franklin read, I leave the following. Knowledge. Emily frowned. Excuse me? Franklin raised his eyes. Would you like me to continue? They said nothing. You are to receive a complete printed copy of every financial record related to the assistance your mother provided to you over the past 30 years. All loans, gifts, checks, and covered debts, with dates and amounts. Rick's face reddened. Emily's mouth twitched. These records are not requests for repayment, Franklin said evenly. They are reminders. He turned the page. To Haley Owens, granddaughter and named health proxy, I leave the entirety of my liquid assets, including investment accounts, bonds, and savings, to be held in trust until she is 30. The trustee is Franklin Kemp. Haley blinked. Wait. I raised a hand gently. It's already done. Franklin continued. To Nurse Lynn Holloway, I leave a one-time gift of $25,000 in gratitude. Rick choked. A nurse? A woman, I said, who treated me like one too. Emily glared. This is ridiculous. You're rewarding a stranger? She showed me more respect unconscious than either of you did awake. Franklin went on. The house and all its contents are to remain in the family, held in a protected estate, not to be sold or subdivided unless Haley decides otherwise once the trust matures. Haley looked at me, stunned. Grandma, I know you'll do right by it, I said. Not because you owe me, but because you love what this house holds. Rick stood. You can't be serious. She's a kid. She's kind, I said, and she never once tried to measure my worth by square footage or portfolio. Emily's voice rose. So that's it? We get nothing? You got years, I said calmly. You got tuition, homes, bailouts, forgiveness. Franklin cleared his throat. There is one more item. Both turned to him sharply. Each of you will receive a letter, in your handwriting, from your mother. He handed them the envelopes. They didn't open them. I think we're done here, Emily said coldly. Rick muttered something under his breath, but I didn't ask him to repeat it. They left without another word. The door closed. The house exhaled. Haley looked at me with glassy eyes. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I said. You've said enough just by showing up. She leaned in and hugged me tightly. Franklin gathered his things, quietly, respectfully. When they were gone, I sat in my chair, the same one I'd fallen into the day the stroke came. My cane rested against my leg. The sky outside was still heavy, but inside, everything felt lighter. For the first time in my life, I wasn't leaving anything unsaid. They didn't call the next day, or the day after, but I didn't expect them to. People like Rick and Emily don't process betrayal the way you and I do. To them, it isn't about what they did. It's about what they didn't get. It isn't shame. It's shock. The kind that comes when the world finally stops letting them win by default. I sat by the window that Friday morning, watching the mail truck stop at the end of the block. The dog across the street barked like it always did. Same routine, same rhythm, but something had changed. Me. I had my tea, a small plate of toast, and the sunlight crawling across the floor. The kind of moment you don't notice when your life is constantly consumed by tending to someone else's fires. Haley came by later with her laptop and 2 small packages. Photos are all scanned, she said. I uploaded everything to a private cloud and backed it up twice. Your legacy isn't going anywhere. I smiled. Thank you. She hesitated, then pulled a thin envelope from her coat pocket. "This came to my place," she said, "from Uncle Rick." I took it, didn't open it. "You want me to stay?" she asked. "No," I said gently. "This part's mine." She kissed the top of my head and left quietly. I waited until the door shut behind her before I opened the envelope. "Mom," I read the letter. "I'm still not sure what hurts more. The fact that you heard everything, or the fact that you never said anything all these years. You say you gave us everything, maybe, but you also gave in to guilt, to expectations. You made us believe that you'd always be there. And then, one day, you weren't. I'm angry. I'm not pretending I'm not. But I'm also aware. You finally made a decision, and that matters more than I want to admit. I don't know where we go from here, but I figured silence wasn't the answer. Rick. I read it twice, then folded it and placed it in the drawer with the others. Later, I opened Emily's letter. Not the one I'd written her, the one she'd finally left in the mailbox with no return address. It was shorter, sharper. "I suppose this was inevitable. You always kept score. I just didn't realize you were keeping it in ink. I don't agree with what you've done, but I've also stopped expecting you to be who I remember. You made your choice. I'll make mine. Goodbye. Emily." That one I didn't read again. Instead, I pulled out the letters from Haley. Little notes she'd tucked into grocery bags, books, cards. She never made a show of them, just small things. "Grandma, I found your sweater under the couch. Don't worry, I didn't let Mom toss it. P.S. I fixed the kitchen drawer. Again. Or you were right. Mint does grow better near the fence. Thanks for knowing everything. Always." She gave without a spotlight, loved without a ledger. That's who gets my legacy. Not because she's perfect, but because she saw me, even when I wasn't speaking. That night, I pulled the old comforter from the linen closet, the one I'd sewn by hand after my husband left, when the silence was unbearable and my hands needed something to do. I wrapped it around my shoulders and sat on the porch. The neighborhood was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from peace, not absence. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt done. And for a woman who spent a lifetime tending, fixing, smoothing, done is a kind of freedom I never knew I needed. After the letters, everything settled. Not into forgiveness, that never came, but into silence. And silence, when it's chosen, can be a kind of music. Haley started coming by less often. Not because she was pulling away, but because she no longer felt she had to keep watch. That was a gift in itself. We'd sit sometimes, when she did visit, and say nothing for whole stretches. Just listen to the birds, drink coffee, exist. One afternoon, she brought over a photo album I hadn't seen in years. A real one. Leather-bound, yellowed corners, pages stiff with time. "I found it in the attic," she said. "You labeled everything. I used to think I'd forget if I didn't." "You did it for them, didn't you?" she asked, not unkindly. "So they'd know how much you gave?" I didn't answer right away. Flipped a page instead. There was Rick at his high school graduation, smiling only because he was told to. Emily holding Haley as a baby, her hair still long then, me in the background of every shot, slightly out of focus, holding something, fixing something. "I did it," I said slowly, because no one else was keeping track. We stopped on a photo of the house, taken the day I bought it. A cheap plastic lawn chair sat on the porch, a single flower pot, everything bare and new. This place is still standing because of you, Haley said, because you fought for it. No, I said. It's still standing because I stayed. There's a difference. That evening, Franklin called. He'd received official notice. Rick had hired a lawyer to contest the will. Emily had not. I'm not worried, Franklin said. Your paperwork is clean. The trust is solid. But you'll need to prepare yourself. For what? For more silence. The kind that holds a grudge. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Let them carry it. I've carried enough. We hung up, and I sat by the window for a while, watching the wind move the trees. Leaves fell like confessions. Slow, unbothered, final. Later I made a list. Not of people, not of debts, but of things I wanted done. Repaint the porch. Donate the old coats. Organize the recipes. Haley asked about the goulash. Write a letter to Lynn. The list wasn't urgent, but it was mine. That weekend, I baked. For the first time since the hospital. Apple bread. It sank slightly in the middle, but the crust browned just right. I wrapped half for Judith. Left a piece on the counter for Haley. Ate mine warm, with butter. You don't realize how long you've been hungry until something fills you without taking. I thought about calling Emily, just once, to see if she'd answer. I didn't. Not because I was angry, but because I finally understood. Love isn't owed. Especially not to people who see your presence as a problem and your absence as an opportunity. Letting go isn't always a decision. Sometimes it's a return to yourself. It rained for 3 days straight. Not the kind of dramatic storm that breaks the sky open, but the quiet, steady kind. The kind that makes the world feel heavier and slower, like it's holding its breath. I stayed inside. Opened the windows just a crack. Let the sound in. It reminded me of years I'd almost forgotten, when the kids were small and the roof still leaked near the pantry. I used to put a pot there, turn on the radio low, and stir soup while the rain tapped against the windows like it was trying to be let in. It was strange what memory chose to keep. Not the big fights, the milestones, or the chaos. Just the moments where I felt present, undistracted, real. That's how this new life felt now. Quiet, clear, mine. Judith stopped by on the 3rd day. She didn't even knock, just came in with a bag of oranges and an umbrella dripping on the floor. You heard? She asked. I raised an eyebrow. Rick. Filed the claim officially. It'll be in the papers next week. I know, I said. She sat without asking, started peeling an orange like we had all the time in the world. He's not going to win. I know that too. But he's going to be loud about it. That's his right. She popped a slice into her mouth. You really are different now. I'm just done pretending. She looked at me then, long and steady. Does it hurt? Not like it used to, I said. Because the truth is, I'd already mourned them. The versions of them I once hoped they'd be. I'd laid that hope down like a coat over a puddle too wide to step across. Now I stepped around it. Later that night, I wrote a letter. Not to Rick, not to Emily, to myself. You did not fail. You held the line when no one else would. You were never weak for giving, only tired from never receiving. You don't need to carry their disappointment anymore. You gave them the best of you. And now, finally, you are giving that to yourself. I folded it, placed it in the back of the notebook where the old lists lived. And then I went to bed without fear. No locked doors, no headphones to drown out my thoughts. Just the sound of the rain and the steady beat of something I thought I'd lost. peace. The court date came and went. I didn't attend. I didn't need to. Franklin handled everything, just like he said he would. Haley sat in the back row and told me later that Rick looked like a man who'd come to a gunfight holding a spoon. His lawyer tried to spin the story. Mental confusion, undue influence, family estrangement. But the papers didn't lie. The dates didn't lie. My voice, when it finally returned and I used it to sign those documents myself, didn't lie. The judge dismissed the contest in under 15 minutes. Rick didn't look at Haley on his way out, just shoved past the reporters and got into his car. He never called, never wrote. But I didn't expect a goodbye from someone who never really said hello unless it came with a request. Emily never joined the case, but she never came back either. Some losses come quietly, like breath leaving a room. Others never mattered in the first place. I spent the next few days doing small things, watering the plants, fixing the hinge on the screen door, reorganizing the spices in the kitchen, the ones that hadn't been touched since before the stroke. That was the thing no one warned me about recovery. It wasn't the big goals that brought you back. It was the quiet victories. The first time you remember how you like your toast. The moment you put on a sweater and realize you did it without sitting down. The morning you open a window just because you want to smell the air. Haley came by with a stack of paperwork from Franklin. Final confirmations. The trust was fully active. The assets protected. Everything clean. "You did it," she said, laying the documents on the table. "We did." She smiled, but her face carried something else, something quieter. Hesitation. "What is it?" She hesitated. "I got offered a job." I sat down slowly. "In Oregon," she added. "Nonprofit. Women's housing. It's small, but it's exactly what I've been looking for." I looked at her face, at the girl who once curled up on my couch with a fever and asked if she could stay forever. And now she was a woman, standing with a backbone I'd helped build. "You should go." She blinked. "Are you sure?" "Of course not," I said, and we both laughed. "But you were never mine to keep, just mine to raise." Her eyes filled and I reached for her hand. "You gave me more than they ever did, Haley. Not because you owed me, because you chose me." She wiped her cheek and nodded. "When do you leave?" "Next month." I helped her find an apartment online the next week, paid the deposit without telling her. Let her think it was the nonprofit's grant. Some things you do quietly because that's how you were loved once and how you want to pass it on. The night before she left, we sat on the porch again, same place as always. She held her tea. I held mine. "You know," she said, "you changed my life." "No," I replied. "You changed mine." We didn't say more. Just sat in the hush, the kind that happens when two people don't need to prove anything anymore. When she left the next morning, she hugged me so tight I felt her ribs. "You'll visit?" she asked. "Only if you send me real letters, none of that text message nonsense." She laughed, nodded, and drove away. No ceremony, just tail lights disappearing down the street. And I stood there a long time, watching the emptiness she left behind settle into something surprisingly warm. Because sometimes goodbye isn't the end of something. It's the recognition that something beautiful did happen. And now it's being carried forward. I turned and walked back inside. The house felt quiet, but never empty. The house aged with me. Paint peeled where the sun hit hardest. Floorboards creaked in the same 3 places they always had. I let them. Let the walls groan and the windows stick, and the wind hummed through the vents like a lullaby. It wasn't a perfect home, but it was mine. Every flaw, every dent, every stubborn drawer, it all held my fingerprints, my fight, my memory. I started keeping the front door unlocked during the day, not because I was careless, but because I didn't want to live like someone waiting for harm. I'd lived long enough under caution. This was about trust, not in others, necessarily, but in the life I'd built, in the air I breathed, in the self I had finally reclaimed. Judith came by most mornings. We didn't need plans. Some days we just sat. Other days we swapped stories about the things we'd finally stopped apologizing for. She joked that I should write a book. I said I already had. In the years, the choices, the spine it took to stay standing when the ground fell out. She nodded like someone who understood more than she said. Then, one afternoon, the letter came. Not from Rick, not from Emily, but from one of Emily's boys, the younger one, Matthew. Grandma, I know we haven't talked in a while. I heard about the will, about the arguments. Mom's still mad. But I wanted you to know, I get it. I remember you being at every game. I remember the way you never asked for thanks, but always showed up. I didn't forget. If you ever want company, I'd love to visit. Not for anything. Just to visit. Love, Matt. I read it twice, then a third time. And I cried. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. Because someone remembered me not for what I gave, but for simply being there, for showing up. That weekend, he came, tall now, quieter, carried himself like someone who'd seen what entitlement does to people and decided to choose something else. We made sandwiches, ate on the porch. He didn't bring up his mother. I didn't ask. We talked about books, about his new job, about how his roommate never washes dishes, and how adulthood is lonelier than anyone warns you. I listened, not to respond, just to witness. It was the most natural thing in the world. When he left, he hugged me, hesitant at first, then real. Don't be a stranger, I said. He smiled. Not a chance. And I believed him. Months passed. Seasons shifted. The marigolds came back, strong as ever. I planted new herbs, started writing letters again, not to send, just to feel my own voice on paper. Sometimes people walked by the house and waved. Sometimes they didn't. It didn't matter. My worth was no longer measured in who noticed. It was enough that I did. I still talk to Haley once a week. She sends me photos of the Women's Center, the shelves she helped build, the couch she donated from her first paycheck. I can see me in her, not in the face, but in the fight. She says they call her the quiet storm. I tell her it runs in the family. And when I lay my head down at night, I don't count regrets anymore. I count returns to dignity, to stillness, to the self I nearly gave away in pieces. Now I keep her close. And we sit together, this older version of me and the girl I used to be, not always speaking, but never silenced. If you've made it this far, thank you. And if you've ever felt forgotten, used, or spoken over, know this. You can come back. You can begin again, even if no one claps, even if no one follows, even if you have to do it in the quiet with shaking hands and stubborn grace. I did, and I'm still here. If this story spoke to you, share it. Leave a comment. Save it for the day you forget your own voice. And when you remember it, speak. You deserve to be heard.